Hey Robert,
Amy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? How was your honeymoon?
It was very nice. Uh,
Oh, good.
yes, we ate plenty of I don't know. It's you're in Italy and everyone says the food's good and the food's good. There it
Is the
is.
food as good as they say?
Yes, I
Even
except
better.
we went to Sicily and in Sicily apparently they eat donkey. Um,
Oh, wow.
so that was the exotic experience.
How was it?
I had it as like mortadella and cured meat, so it just tasted like I was
Oh,
eating
okay.
pork no more than
Salami.
yeah.
Yeah, or prosciutto or something.
Yep.
Very cool. How much weight did you gain?
Zero. The same weight.
Oh, that's great.
The only
Wow.
weight I gained was on my face.
Yes, I noticed that new weight there too.
Very good. I'm excited to be back though because I missed last month for the general meeting, and I'm this will be my first general meeting as a member.
Oh,
So
yes, in person
in
too,
person,
right?
right? No, yeah, I
Right.
mean I've been
Okay.
to plenty of general meetings, but first in person, so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got that tomorrow. Yeah,
Yes.
I did go to our first meet. I was able to go. It was a rainy night, but yes, I was able to go. I was able to attend. Yeah, it was interesting, as all meetings always are.
Of course. Where are we
Right? Yeah.
tomorrow?
1055 St. John's,
Okay.
which is St. John's in Kingston.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like a senior center, community center kind of deal. Yeah, it's like right around the corner from Legal Hand where I am on
Got
Thursdays,
it.
so that's why I'm familiar with it.
I am
I
working from home tomorrow so that I don't have to miss the meeting or be late. So
right, right. Yeah, so just over at Kingston and St. John's.
I know this building. Cool.
Okay. Yeah. How far is that from you?
I'm not too far. I'm at Utica in Pacific, so
Oh,
um,
yeah, no, it's perfect,
yeah.
actually. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
There's another senior center we used to meet at that they used to meet at before I was a member. That's closer
Hmm.
to me. It's over on. It's got to be Troy, not Troy, but Ralph. I think not Ralph.
Okay.
Uh, what am I thinking of?
Albany?
No, no, it's on Rochester. It's at like there's a senior center at like Rochester and Prospect that we've met at in the past.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ah, I'm not familiar with that one. I'm getting one of those like change of weather colds. Can feel
yeah.
it. My nose is all stuffy. Ugh, but I have enjoyed the weather. The weather's great today too.
Today was the first day I decided not to bike to work because it was too much.
Because of the weather? Oh
Yes.
wow, okay.
And I
Yeah, it
wanted to
was
be home in time. Biking is a little bit slower than getting on the train, and so it would have been hard to get
yeah,
home in time.
to make it yeah, to make sure that you made it in time.
Yes.
And how's your chicken?
This one, he's hanging out behind me, and then
How's did he miss you during your vacation?
he stayed with my in-laws.
Right, I remember, yes.
And they were not they loved him. They were having a good time.
That's great. But did he miss you? Like, did he give you like a
I
hard
think
time when
so.
you guys came back, or like, how does
Yes.
that work with chickens?
He bit me, but otherwise
Uh-huh.
he was a good boy. He was very happy to see us.
Okay, yeah, he let you know he was not happy that you left. Anyways, sorry, we won't take over the meeting because I guess we're supposed to start. So I'll talk to you later, Robert.
Sure.
Hey guys, my name is Mike. I live in Crown Heights. Are these meetings like open to the public? Can we just join them?
Yes, you can.
Amazing. That's okay. I'm just joining for the first time.
Welcome.
Thanks.
And if you attend 3 meetings in a row, you have voting privileges.
Oh wow, is that
Committee
three
voting,
meetings of a specific committee or just three meetings in general?
3 meetings of the specific committee.
Got it.
Then
And
you
it's
become a
just
member.
yeah, it just to clarify, it's not to become a member of the a voting member of the community board, but just the specific committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Have we heard from Miss Granville? Oh, there she is. Oh, great.
Congratulations.
Was that to me? You're muted, Miss Granville.
Get married, correct?
Yeah, well, so we just went on our honeymoon, but we got married last year. We just postponed it so
Okay.
that we didn't get sick.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Belated congratulations to you.
Thank you.
No Humpty.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, Miss Granville, you're muted again.
Ma'am. I'm still muted.
No, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't have my finger where it should have been, so I guess that's why I was muted. Sorry about that. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for waiting.
Evening, good evening. How are you?
And for those of you who couldn't make it, I think you missed a nice parade on Saturday.
Miss Glenville, I got there a little late. This is Miss Frances Langley, but I did see the ending of it at Utica and Fulton Street.
I'm happy that you were able to see the end of it, and I'm hoping next year that we can have a better turnout than we did this year.
Yes.
As a point of information, the gentleman that we have wanted to honor as one of the grand marshals had declined because he didn't feel that he was physically up to it. He would have been 101 in January. He just passed away last week. And I feel bad because it took them 77 years to give the man his Purple Heart.
Wow, that is just wow. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Funny, they really didn't keep records for the black soldiers like they did for everybody else. And they weren't considered injured a lot of times when they were. So if you could not prove that you were wounded, they didn't even look at you as far as thinking about giving you a Purple Heart. And the man had been wounded more than once. His records had been destroyed in a fire, and he really had no other proof that he had even been where he said he had been. And he was in France, I believe, or Germany on D-Day. So it took his daughter 7 years to get the Joint Chiefs of Staff to look at the evidence that was necessary to prove that he had been there.
It's a good thing that they found the paperwork, all the papers, because sometimes they destroy the papers. So that was a good thing. She was able to.
What happened that particular year, someone involved with the Tribeca Film Festival did a short film on World War II veterans called 6th of June, and he was interviewed for the film. That little piece of footage where he was interviewed was what was shown to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and that was able to be used as evidence that he was there. Now that I have given you all an aside that has absolutely nothing to do with the matter at hand, good evening again. And Sarah, we haven't seen you in a while, so I know that you're sure to have something to say.
Oh boy. I am sorry that I've been absent. I was working on the Max Rose campaign, and that has sort of occupied all of my brain power lately. Um, I will reflect and see if I can get my brain up to speed with other specifically housing related issues.
How many of you were present for the very extended land use meeting that we had? Was it last week or was it 2 weeks ago?
That was last week.
So you were here, Mr. Callahan.
I was there.
Okay.
I was
I
there
voted.
also. I was there also, Mimi Mitchell.
Now, Mimi, am I correct in remembering that someone was saying something about land use and housing should be closer together or something? Did somebody say that?
Yeah, somebody did say, they said land, what they were saying was, my understanding was that landmarks should be further away and land use and housing should be closer together because land use is where the new construction is happening and they're not consulting with us here at housing to see what we have to say about these new developments and what these developments require or should require. That was my understanding.
Slight incline from Mr. Callahan. Did you get that as well?
Yes, Ms. Granville. I think the impression. I mean, I would just personally tend to agree that we're spending a lot of time on this particular application um, on Pacific Street and the legalization for that. And there's a lot of talk of what sort of housing is going to go there and what sort of land use is going to go there. And I just because land use is such a structured committee and one that devotes pretty much all of its time to voting items, agenda items. It's not really structured in such a way that it allows for a more free-form discussion. So, I mean, if they're looking for a venue to talk to people, and if they care, I would say that the applicant should come here because it's similar. It's the same thing, right? With the exception of the ground floor commercial uses. I mean, it's all housing they're talking about.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you there. And nobody does, like, nobody reaches out to this committee to actually talk to us. It's because we're not the ones who are actually like endorsing the UR or ups or whatever applications, etc. It's sort of like, well, then we don't matter. But we do matter because this is where a lot of the tenants are and landlords. This affects all of us like much more closely in terms of what's been going on in housing and what we're trying to prevent from happening.
Saying that you think LPC is too much involved with non-housing issues?
What do you
I'm
mean?
asking.
Yeah, right, but I didn't expand your question a little bit, please.
I'm trying to understand exactly the points of view, and I tell you because I have been somewhat prejudiced about it because I was in the board when one particular committee dealt with everything before they split it up. So at one point, before we had 3 historic districts, it was just called housing, period. And it didn't necessarily have an emphasis on the rights of homeowners and tenants. It was just all one big pot. And the pot became separated after it got to the point where housing was consumed pretty much with proposals that came before LPC.
I see. So the LPC overshadowed the housing issues. Is that what you mean?
It overshadowed because we started out with phase 1 of Crown Heights North, then we got phase 2, and then we got phase 3. So when you have 3 historic districts plus Prospect Heights technically has its own historic district, so that's 4. So you have 4 historic districts, which some people call landmark districts, the same difference to me, in one particular community board. You have a lot of things that are coming up that the community board has to listen to that deal with LPC.
Right, right. But then we also have a lot of things that are starting to come up that deal with housing, like this application for Pacific Street. It's really basically, I guess, from my point of view, like what we're looking at is more about the new developments that are happening. Um, I don't necessarily think that the committee should be folded into one, because then there wouldn't be room for us to discuss some of the things that we like to discuss here, in terms of advocacy, etc. But I do maybe think that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it works, but maybe we can work with that committee better or something. I don't know. I haven't really thought of it deeply, to be honest with you.
A first step might be for me to have a discussion with the chair about the fact that it's not just housing, it should be housing advocacy. Because we're more concerned with the rights of homeowners and the rights of tenants than land use would be. Because again, land use is primarily consumed at this point with things that have to come before LPC. And I realize that there are other people here who may have a different view of things. I see Sarah's hand is up, but I'm also surprised that I'm not hearing anything from Princess. And Miss Jordan has been awfully quiet also. Sarah, you can speak because I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Granville. Yeah, I honestly think this is just difficult. I think it's really valuable that housing split from land use, just that, because if housing and land use are all together, whether it's rezoning apps or landmark apps, there would never be time to discuss, legislation that could really help or hurt tenants or homeowners or goings on in the neighborhood that are of note, like, the big like deed theft or evictions or I was looking for an article I wanted to share with you all about something crazy pants. I think that's the technical term, absolutely crazy pants, that's going on Park Place, with just truly insane harassment. I'm going to find the article, but yeah, I mean, I appreciate having this other committee space where we can discuss things like that. Um, I I I think it's a shame. Maybe I don't know, maybe one solution or compromise could be that, maybe if developers are coming to the land use committee pitching things, maybe they ought to be invited to come to a housing committee meeting in order to hear what the actual housing issues the in the neighborhood are. Um, but I don't know if they would even do that because it's not technically part of the process that they have to follow in order to obtain what they want, which is upzonings. Um, yeah, I I've wondered about this, and no brilliant ideas have come to my mind about how to bridge this gap. I'm glad people are talking about it, though.
Princess, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm not feeling too well. I had surgery. But I think I agree with everything that was said. I think somehow they should come to housing meeting. As someone said earlier, I think it was Mimi, that landlord and tenants, we may not be the big developers, but they still do have landlords and tenants in this community. And most of the developers, when they develop, they're now residents of the community. So they really do not understand the effect of the community and the people who already reside here. So I think it's okay for them to show up to at least 1 or 2 meetings per year.
Ms. Jordan, do you have any thoughts on it?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I agree with what Miss Princess says. I think they should come out to the meeting and listen to what the tenants they're saying about the buildings, and maybe we get a idea of how they feel and move up from there. I think it's a very good idea.
Atkinson, you've been very quiet. No thoughts?
I was quiet because I just got in the meeting. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking, being a mom and doing PTA stuff and trying to get into these meetings as well. So I agree with what we just literally said because I don't know what was said in the beginning. So they need to come out to these meetings. Or we need to do a dual meeting because it doesn't make sense why we're not. I'm gonna come right back. I have to take this phone call. I'll come right back. Sorry.
Mike Shaheen, do you have any thoughts on the topic?
Hey, I'm just joining. I'm not really sure I fully understand the topic. This is my first meeting. So the issue is that they split the housing issues between two committees, and we're upset that the bulk of the topics or the applications have gone to the other committee. Sorry, I'm just new to this.
Okay, quickly, what the discussion happened to be about was the fact that people feel that the housing and the land use committees should be closer. And what has happened in the past was that housing was one large committee, but that was prior to the designation of 4 historic districts in Community Board 8. One district is in Crown Heights, one, should I say, preservation or historic district is in Prospect Heights, and the other 3 are in North Crown Heights. Just so that you know, initially they had wanted to have one large district, historic district for Crown Heights, but city planning would not allow us to designate the entire area at one time because they felt it would be too large. And just so that you understand, whenever there is talk of having historic district designated, city planning likes to know that the actual residents are in favor of it. They don't want it to look like it's something that the community board is pushing without the residents being in consent. So now that we have 4 different historic districts, you have all of these things that come up that have to go through the Landmarks Preservation Commission. And because a lot of them do, and they're not staff level, where they can just get one person's opinion, it has to go through the committee. The committee hears it, they discuss it, they vote on it, and it goes to the full board. So now that we have this historic designation, certain things that could automatically have been built without it cannot be built without community being able to weigh in. Such as the fact that you can't just decide you're going to put a pool in your backyard. you can't suddenly decide that you're suddenly going to put anything up that can be seen from across the street. It might be your roof, but if it's something that can be seen from across the street, that comes under the purview of landmarks. The bicycle shed that some people were not in favor of, that came under landmark review because when the buildings were designated, there were no such things as bike sheds. So all of that has come into play, and most of the work of the land use committee is now consumed with applications that come to LPC. Housing was designated, the committee was designed to deal with the rights of homeowners and the rights of tenants, because people came to us and said, Ms. Granville, you're not dealing with the rights of homeowners and the rights of tenants at all. So that was the split.
Okay, that's helpful context. Thanks. So who would be the one who decides to put the committees back together if that's what the goal is?
At this point, I'm not sure that it would be useful to actually put them back together. It might be useful to have them join periodically, but I'm not sure if it would be useful, because what happens with landmarks, you have to understand that there's a calendar involved. So when they give people a date to come before landmarks, there's usually a hearing prior to that with the committee from the community board and with a vote by the full board. So you can't just do away with it, even though you might like to.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
If you don't know, everybody thinks community boards don't have any meetings in July and August, and they normally don't. But because of the way certain agencies run, we found it necessary to meet during the summer, because what has happened in the case of SLA, we have found that if we don't meet during the summer, we come back in September and we see places that we never heard of that have been granted liquor licenses that we had no say in. We couldn't ask any questions or anything because it didn't go through us. Because if we don't meet, they say, okay, well, it's a money thing with SLA. So just because the community objects to a liquor license doesn't mean that our objection stands. If SLA overrules us, they get it. So I can't tell you how many times we've come back in September and looked around the neighborhood and said, well, gee, when did this place open? We didn't know anything about it. The same thing can be done with LPC. They continue with their calendar in spite of the fact that the boards do not have meetings in July and August. So again, if we are not meeting to consider what they look at during July and August, we'll come back and we'll find that things have been approved and construction has been started and changes have been made that we know nothing about. If we were going to have joint meetings, how often do you think they should occur?
I mean, personally, once a quarter, I wouldn't need it to be regular, just when stuff sort of meets up.
Yeah, quarterly sounds good to me as well. I do have a question about this, but I see that Robert has his hand up, or had his hand up before me, but
I do see that your hand was up. You had a question or a comment?
Sure. I just wanted to maybe put a point on this. I think the thing that's valuable about what land use does is that they sort of have guiding documents, or things that they can review as sort of like objective criteria. And I would say that something would be beneficial to this committee, if we were to invite developers or whomever to come speak with us and sort of solicit feedback from us, is to have some sort of criteria, some sort of like list of demands, whatever you want to call it, to say when we say we want to communicate to people the desires of this community in terms of housing, and housing advocacy, it'd be nice to know what sort of issues animate us, and that might take the form of sort of soliciting feedback from people, so that we can come and say this is what people in our district, community district, care about in terms of housing. So, like, getting started on something like that seems like work that is valuable to making this committee a good part of the the housing development process.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Being clear about what we want would be important. Uh, I guess I'm wondering, like theoretically, land use, we talk about it in conjunction with housing so much because there's such a focus by developers on residential um, building and getting and changing zoning to uh, increase the amount of housing they're able to build because that's what makes money at the moment. Before it was commercial and now it's residential. And I'm wondering, land use, however, uh, does the committee, and especially the MCRON committee, claim to care about other factors besides housing, like light manufacturing space. I don't know if, like, personally, because housing is the issue I care about the most, usually, you know, I feel like any developer should have to come and listen to what we have to say about what the housing needs of this district truly are. But I'm wondering if, land use might be expected to do the same thing with the Economic Development Committee, or any other particular committee, because maybe we're lacking in health resources. Maybe they should be meeting with the health committee. Like, I don't know. um yeah, just bringing that up.
Mimi, I see your hand and I see Princess's hand. Mimi, you had a comment and then Princess would be next.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe what we should be trying to do is attend, when it comes to developments, at least, maybe we should be attending the land use committee as a block, um, of sort, like as an actual like entity of this is the housing committee and we are now here, especially when it comes to dealing with like developers. Some of us are on the land use committee, myself included. And it would be great if, like, maybe I'm thinking, I mean, I'm just like totally just thinking off the top of my head, but maybe if we, the housing committee, kind of came together and, like, for this 962 Pacific, the developers, there was nothing to really vote on, but they are trying to, I don't even know what the word to use. I feel like sell us on how great this development is going to be is what I feel like they're trying to do. Um, but I think if we attended as a block and maybe asked questions as a block or had them come see us also, or, invited them to come and talk with us, that would be a good start, maybe. I don't know, just thoughts.
Princess?
Yeah. Yes. I know Robert make a suggestion that we meet quarterly, but within that space of time, if there's something of pressing need we need to address, what would happen then? Because development is going on every day, as you see in our community. Every time you turn, there are new developments, and then something is coming towards us, but we decided to meet quarterly. How would we make that decision? For me, it can be quarterly, but it also can be when needed or when necessary. That's just a thought. Because development is going on around us at such a it seems like you go to bed tonight and one space was there, and you wake up the next day and something else is going up. So I think quarterly would be such a broad space of span of time between the two. I think we should consider that. And if something of pressing needs to be addressed, would there be a clause that we can come together, a group of us, or we can come together the group to address that? You know, that's just a thought I'm thinking out. I'm thinking about that.
You make a very good point because things don't always happen on the schedule. So that's a very good point. Ms. Langley, do you have any thoughts on that matter?
Yeah, I do. Was it Lemley or I'm sorry, like,
You know what? You've been very quiet too. I was getting to you next because it's not like you guys not to have anything to say.
sorry. Our last
That's
name
okay.
sounds very familiar.
Miss Glenville, how are you doing? I come on to understand a lot. Sometimes I don't understand it, but I were on the other meeting also when the extended meeting, and I don't think they should be together because most of the time they are talking about two different things. But like someone said, maybe every once in a while they can chime in, which I agree to that. But most time when I'm on the other meeting and this meeting is totally different.
Now, your name correctly? The lady who is with Mr. Robinson?
Sorry, okay, my name is Lemle and not Langley. I'm sorry, like, so I
Okay,
always got
sorry,
that.
I was mispronouncing your name.
No, I've
Looking
always
at your
got it
face, so I
confused.
know who I meant to say. So,
No,
and I know that you have some thoughts on the matter, so talk.
yeah, I'm sorry, I do, and I very much appreciate this meeting, and I very much agree with Miss Langley. That the two meetings are very different, like the land use or general community board meetings are very different to this meeting. And in regards to like quarterly meetings, I think we do need to have a case to case like meeting. Like quarterlies are certainly wonderful to set in stone, and then as it comes more important, like meet more often. But I also would love to, as intendants, to try to reach out to small business business owners. Like I am on Pacific Street, as most of you possibly know, and some long-standing small businesses who own the property have a really hard time in holding up with property taxes, with fines from the construction debris and trash, and they don't want to leave, but they feel like they have to, also due to the pressure from developers who really are urging to buy pretty much where Jack and I live, up to Classen Avenue to build another big multi like $1 million thing. So we've been reaching out to those small business and building owners because they do own the buildings, which they seem to not be able to afford soon anymore. But maybe within the group, we need to consider really reaching out not only like to tenants and building owners, but small business owners who are in the neighborhood that ought to be redeveloped soon to just help them as well. That's all. Thank you.
In a way, and I'll say this because when the M Crown was conceived, one of the major things that was discussed was the fact that people wanted to be able to leave a certain amount of light industry in the area. And the hope was that some people would actually be able to walk to work. If they couldn't live in the building that they produced art in, they could at least walk to where they had to work so that they wouldn't have to be bothered with transportation issues and what have you. And I say this as somebody who thought that the formation of that particular subcommittee was valuable and that it was not a waste of time. So I just wanted to put that in there in case anybody didn't know, because we did have some people who didn't quite understand what M Crown was all about from the very beginning.
I very much understand that, and sorry that I'm just chipping in, but like I've lived in this apartment for 20 years, and my landlord's already trying to send us offers to buy us out, and this is my home, and I want to stay.
Understood. Miss Atkinson, you're back.
I've been back. I've been listening to everybody talk. I was just going to throw in that sorry, that for let me just look at her name because I don't want to pronounce her name wrong. So I know I don't want to say your name wrong, but talking about the small businesses in the community, we also have an economic development committee. I'm on it. I wish more small businesses would reach out to us inside of in that committee, that we can know what's going on and help them. That's something that maybe that you can pass that on, that information, because there is a whole committee that's there for them to help them, to make sure that we do keep the small businesses in our neighborhood. I think we need to meet with the other committees. I'm on several of them. We can't, other committees will have their focus. And if someone doesn't say, hey, we maybe need to focus more on what the needs of the people that live here, and they're not worrying about the developers making more new people come in, what do we need here as well? So those are conversations that committees can have. We may not have to join their official committee. We can have a meeting that's not on the schedule, and just we make a schedule and say, hey, can we meet with you and talk about the needs that we have? These are the concerns that we have. And so when you have your next land use committee, you can put this up to the developers, things like that. Public safety, we have meetings, we have subcommittee meetings and talk and different things that we reach out to do different things. The youth and education have subcommittee meetings. We do these meetings and then we have a main one. So housing can have the same thing.
Thank you. That's a very good suggestion. And one of the things that we try to pull together at budget time, even though a lot of people don't see it, is we try to ask different committees for their suggestions. And it would be a lot more useful if you had one or two committees that work together for common goals, because then it would make more sense when certain proposals are made and when certain issues come up. Lisa, did you have another comment?
I'm sorry, did you say Mimi? Oh, sorry,
And
Lisa.
Miss Atkinson's hand was still up. I was asking her if she had another comment.
No, I forgot to take it down. Sorry.
Okay. Miss Mitchell?
I couldn't agree more than with what Ms. Atkinson just said. Ms. Langley also was correct in saying that like the meetings are very different, right? Like in terms of, let's say, land use versus housing. And that's kind of my point in a way. The meetings are so very different. Definitely don't want that type of meeting here, but we're not being represented as tenants, I would say, or as community stakeholders at the land use meeting. At least I don't feel so. I feel that land use is very focused on development, really. They're quite pro-development, which is fine, and there's nothing wrong with being pro-development. But at the end of the day, we're the ones who kind of have the boots on the ground and are dealing with what that development actually entails in the long term for the people of this community. And we don't speak enough about that at land use. And I guess that's why I was saying it would be nice to see that the committees kind of come together so that we are better represented. I don't feel like we're represented at all right now at land use. I feel like it's sort of like just chatter. It's just like it's sort of like the same thing with SLA. If because it doesn't deal with the exact specific tiny minute thing that they're dealing with, then the opinions around it that maybe deal with, let's say, housing or deal with lack of access, etc., they kind of get swept under the rug and sort of ignored. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to find a way to make our voice heard. And you, Ms. Granville, you've been doing housing for quite a while now, and you're on top of like what the issues are. You're very, very on top of what the issues are. And I think that hearing from you and hearing from the rest of us would really make a big dent in things.
Thank you for that. And I'm happy that I try to be receptive so that those things that I may not be aware of, I try to make this particular dialogue a friendly one so that I don't jump over or jump on anybody because they come up with something that I may not have thought of or because their opinion happens to be different. Because I thought that's what the community board was all about, everybody being able to express their concerns and everybody having just as much right as anybody else to bring up issues and to say what's on their mind. Ms. Robinson, you've been very quiet. Are you here?
Oh, I'm there. I'm just listening because I missed the last meeting, so I'm just listening to try to catch up.
Okay. Making it a point to ask everyone whose name I see because I don't want to overlook anybody and I don't want the meeting to close and someone had something on their mind and they didn't say anything. Because a lot of times people are quiet, not because they don't have anything to say, but because nobody gave them a chance to talk. And unfortunately, that's sometimes in our community why folks don't like each other, because we don't talk and we don't know each other. Do you have your hand up? Are you muted? You shouldn't be. Did you press your space bar on your laptop?
I had my hand up. Was that directed to me?
Yes, because I saw your hand up. I didn't want you I didn't want the meeting to close without me
Yeah.
recognizing that your hand was up.
Yeah. I had one quick thing, and I think that I thought quarterly was a good idea for that kind of a meeting, but really it should be when important votes are coming up on whatever committee that the other committee that you would be dealing with. And I kind of thought that I wonder if some kind of like maybe not a full board meeting, like, and when I say that I mean it very like casually, where you just discuss some things and don't vote on anything, where you talk about some things that you care about, but maybe it's just a congress of a couple of committees that come together informally, like not voting, doesn't need to be anything special, and where you just talk to each other and exchange ideas. I don't know if that could work or what you guys think about that. Thank you.
I see Miss Atkinson's hand. Is your hand Atkinson?
Yes, it is. It's something that I forgot. With Youth and Education had a meeting, and we had brought in a group of that deals with teens and stuff in the neighborhood, and there's some teens that are these are not just teens, these are some young adults in their 20s that are they want to be very involved. So I'll try to get their information so they can come to the meetings, because they have a lot of concerns, and they're the ones that are next generation that's here, and they need to be here so they can also say what their opinion is. And some of them were very concerned about, they're seeing all these new buildings being built, but they don't see no type of centers and things for them. And they're going to be priced out because they're not going to be able to afford to live in their own neighborhood. So we need to hear the voices of our youth. So that's something that I'm gonna try to get, speak to Mark and see if he can invite them to the next housing committee, because we need to hear everybody's voice.
That
And it was very powerful hearing younger kids, and I'm old enough to be their mother. So I'm listening to them, and I'm it's the way that I go hard and how I advocate for stuff, and they was with the same type of energy. It just was like it was, all of us were just smiling on the committee. It was just so good to hear that these kids want to get involved, and they knew nothing about the community board. They knew nothing whatsoever, and we literally gave them a lesson on all of the committees. So we'll try to get them, because we need to hear their voice as well.
that would
Miss
be
Atkinson,
amazing,
I'm so
Lisa.
happy to hear you
Yeah, Ms.
say that,
Atkinson.
because when I was in my early 20s, I had no idea what a board was or what it did. And my hope is that if the younger people will become involved at this point in time, by the time they get to be my age, they should be experts on how things are done. And this should happen before they rise up and say they want to change everything. You need to know how things work first before you decide you're going to institute change.
I totally agree. I was very happy to hear them, speak and discuss some things, and definitely, like, we told them that they need to come to land use, because they were very like, why don't we have any performing arts theaters in our neighborhood? Like, they were really asking a lot of questions, and I'm like, we need y'all to voice your opinion so they can hear that the younger youth and kids in the neighborhood have a voice, and they want things here, and they understand certain things that you think they won't. So that's something that was really that was a wonderful meeting, and so hopefully we can get that for all our committees to have them on.
I'm so happy to hear that, because a lot of times things are discussed that affect young people, and they're not usually in the room to even hear the discussion, let alone to have input. So I think that's very encouraging. Sarah, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I guess going back to the land use issue, I guess I'm very much hoping that we're not going to keep seeing a barrage of private ULURP applications in the M Crown area like we have been lately. I mean, I was surprised at 962 Pacific coming up, because I had thought that, with Crystal Hudson making that announcement about, you know, not having any more go through, that it would be possible to truly shift, at least some of the land use committee's focus to the bigger issues that community planning is supposed to um, enable, like these more big picture conversations. Um, because dealing with an endless stream of individual applications makes you lose the forest for the trees. Um, I mean, I guess sometimes a single development has effects all around it, but there aren't even opportunities to talk about it. Like, I shared an article in the chat about the insane harassment that's happening on Park Place, and that's just, a few months after the enormous eviction defense that had to happen because there was an egregious case of deed theft that was also on Park Place. And, all of this real estate industry malfeasance just happens to be on the same block circling the Hebron church area that is going, is on which a giant luxury building is now being built. And, all of these things are interconnected, but when we're constantly haggling over the small details of single ULURP applications, and trying to separate out which FAR is right and which MIH category. We're truly losing the forest for the trees, and we don't see any of the really important things that are happening to tenants and homeowners all around. So I don't know. I feel like it'll be easier to do that collaborative work with the land use committee once we don't have, yeah, those constant rezoning applications.
How many of you have attended a Crown Heights North meeting?
I have. I have.
I did.
I don't know when they meet. I've never actually attended one of those.
I bring that up is because you would be among a group of people who are not just, they're homeowners, but a lot of them are long-standing homeowners. Some of them have had the opportunity to live in other areas before they chose to live in Crown Heights. And I say that because when they have presentations, they've had a number of presentations from the district attorney's office on deed theft. The state and federal tax credits that are eligible for owners in this particular area came through the North Crown Heights Association. Okay? And some of the time when people come in and they do things without asking first, they find out later that it may have been easier to get the things done if they had known that there were housing credits in the first place. But they didn't necessarily know because they didn't ask or they didn't know who to ask. The intersection of citizenship and residence occurs in some of the groups that you may not have actually checked out. And what I want to say to you is that you get more of a sense of what's going on in the area if you belong to more than one group. I know you can't spread yourself thin. You can't have and go to a meeting every time there is a meeting. But I have found that that particular group has actually presented information that's good, not just for homeowners, but for tenants as well. So every now and then, I think they meet I think it's Ms. Langley, it's every quarter or something. They don't meet every month. But the next time they meet, I think it would be worthwhile if some of you who've never gone would actually go and check it out. If you sit there for 20 minutes and you're totally bored and you don't hear anything that you haven't heard 99 times before, then I'd say, okay, I understand if you get up and leave. But I think you need to go and you need to give it a chance.
Yes. And this month, I think they're having it at 1055 St. John Place. I think the meeting's going to be there this month.
Our meeting Thursday is there.
Yes. Also,
Yeah.
I think also the
It's not gonna meet there too.
yes.
Not December 21st.
Yes, they got meeting. Yes, I think it's there.
Yeah, December 21st.
And just in case you may not know, sometimes the elected officials often have the option where you can actually register to be on their mailing list so that when certain topics are discussed, you will get that notice in your email. And when we had different city council people that we didn't see often, and people will complain to me, Ms. Granville, we don't see this person, blah, blah, blah. Do they know that they represent us? My response was that you get on their mailing list, and when you see them coming up with something that you need to know about or you're interested in, you go and you let them know that not only do they represent Bed-Stuy, but they represent you too. And if 20 faces are looking back at folks from Crown Heights, it's going to be real hard to ignore the faces that are sitting there. If they don't come to you, you come to them. That's my point. And to an extent, if they see enough folks from Crown Heights, they're going to have some subject matter and some speakers that speak to the concerns of Crown Heights. But if they never see us and they never hear from us, they will not know what those concerns are. Nicole, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. I forgot who pointed out the younger people in the neighborhood who we would like to get involved in our community board meetings. I keep scratching my head and trying to figure out how to actually reach out to the community, because Jack and I, we only, like, we lived our life, and then 1010 Pacific Street happened, and we were like, oh my God, what just happened? And that's how we realized about the community boards. I wonder, is there a platform? Is there some way that we can actually, like, make people comfortable or aware of all our groups? Like, this is a wonderful group, and to involve them and get them really, like, curious and active in what we are trying to do, instead of them ending up being surprised, kicked out, or like, yeah. I realize I'm actively speaking to people whenever I can about joining, but I take their phone numbers and then I remind them, because they then possibly forget, because there's not a platform that I can send them right away saying, like, an Instagram, or I'm scratching my head. I'm just like asking the group, like, is there a way that we possibly could come up with something to involve people more, to make people, yeah, join us more and be actively part of what's happening to our beloved neighborhood, right? Thank you.
I'm waiting for the young folks who are so electronically inclined to explain to me, who is relatively in the dark ages, exactly how you go about doing that, because community boards have never had a budget for promotion. So the best I could do when I was chair was, whenever anybody asked me to come out and speak about community boards, I come out. I try to bring some board members with me so I could say, okay, these people stand up. These people are board members, so people can see it's not an elitist group where you have to have 4 or 5 degrees in order to be on the board, stuff like that. The whole phenomenon of having to meet by Zoom has done something favorable, because at least people can sit in their living room and see the issues that community boards discuss. It's not such a nebulous, mysterious organization as it was prior to COVID. So I think that's a good thing. The other thing I think is that as older people, we have to model for the younger people and encourage them to be involved, because they did pass a law prior to COVID that makes it legal for younger people to become community board members. Not just come to the committee, but actually be members. And I think a lot of folks are sleeping on that. And we're not going to be here forever, so we need to be able to say that we had a hand in training the young people to understand what it is they need to do. Sarah, your hand was up.
Yeah, I think that the Zoom, or not Zoom, but the WebEx era has definitely made it easier for a lot of the more technologically savvy people to attend, and even people outside of the community board district. But I think in order to bring more young people in, yeah, social media would probably be the most valuable way of getting people in. And then just in order to get like more people who um might not necessarily be technologically savvy. I don't know. I still feel like the thing that makes turnout the most powerful for the tenant union is flyering, and it's very low tech. But it does require, manpower or person power, people power. Um, and it would require a certain amount of yeah, a certain budget for being able to print out flyers to try to bring people out to things. Um, especially once things start being available to attend in person. Um, but yeah, I guess some community boards are more technologically plugged in when it comes to um, the digital version of their newsletters. Or, some community boards are more likely to tweet things or be more active on Instagram. Um, but yeah, it's a question of who has the time and energy available for that kind of thing. I don't know if I don't think I would be able to. Also, I'm not the best social media person, but yeah.
Okay, you mentioned Twitter, you mentioned Instagram. Believe it or not, I do believe that we do have a Facebook page. I don't know what's on it because I haven't looked at it lately. And since I
Yes,
work
we
for the
do.
city, I can't look at it at work unless I use my phone. I can't use their screen to look at Facebook. But as you said, the younger people are more in tune with that. And I'm just wondering between all of us, years ago, didn't the supermarkets and laundromats used to have bulletin boards? Does anybody have them anymore?
Yeah, they still have them.
Because everybody has to buy food and everybody has to do laundry, unless, of course, they have a machine at home. Sometimes I think the older methods of communication were more efficient. And I don't know about you guys, but certain things about culture, especially if it has to deal with music, some of those things are best broadcast over radio airways for those of us who are still old fashioned enough to listen to the radio. I listen to the radio every day. I listen to it when I'm getting ready to go to work, and when I come in the evening, I listen to it sometime. And there's certain programs I listen to on the weekend. So I don't know if we have anybody, because keep in mind, we only have a two-person office at 1291 St. Mark's. I don't know how much time they have to use the newer means of communication. And sometimes I'm annoyed because whoever chose telecommunication system for the community boards didn't do a very good job. Because if I'm talking to Miss George or to Julia and the sound every fifth or seventh word is lost, if I can't hear them and they can't hear me, somebody messed up when they chose that particular company for telecommunications, because we're supposed to be all about information. If we can't even have a conversation, that means we can't convey too much information either. So I'm not happy with that. They can't really speak about it, but I can, because I find it very disconcerting to be speaking to somebody and I can't hear the whole conversation. Just so that you know, I'm from an older generation where we were told years ago that if we wanted to use our college education for the benefit of the community, join the community board. So we were taught that as community board members, we are supposed to be the eyes and ears
It's
of
under.
our elected officials. And I have big problems with people who are paid to represent us, but don't listen to us when we tell them things, because sometimes they're spending so much time in Albany and so much time in DC, they don't understand what we're talking about. So yeah, it's necessary sometimes to pull people's coattail and say, well, look, this particular thing may not be a major expense to you, but for those of us who don't make as much money as you, it's a major concern.
Hold their feet to the fire.
Absolutely. If you
Since
don't
you
say anything to people, people do to you what you let them do.
since you brought that up, Miss Granville, I'm wondering if I'm wondering if discretionary funding from any of our local electeds would be helpful in terms of promoting community board meetings, or if that is somehow crossing the streams in a way that's not allowed.
I'm not sure if anybody has actually put the question to them as far as that particular use of discretionary funds. But all you can do is bring it up, and all they can do is say yes or say no. And if they say no, then you ask them when, why not? It's a good question, and I don't think anybody's ever brought it up. Because, at one point when Mr. Bloomberg was mayor, he was trying to budget the community boards out of existence. He didn't see any need for community boards. And when people don't see a need for stuff, they don't just tell you they don't like it. It's just that every time you look at your numbers, that particular agency or that particular concern is getting less and less money to the point where they're budgeted out of existence. That's how they do it.
May I quickly just speak? Um, I I like the old-fashioned way of handing out flyers as well, and my Jack and I, we are very good at it, and also getting a group of people together and doing it, like, in addition to hopefully finding a contemporary modern day of really like posting flyers, handing out flyers when it comes to meetings. Because that's, of course, I agree with you, Ms. Granville, that we can then also immediately engage with the people, like talk to them and ask them about their concerns and inspire them to join the meeting, to be part and to also be up to date.
And maybe it doesn't come down to us, but maybe it could come down to a child or grandchild of one of the members, just to steer the ship initially.
But the idea of handing out flyers is, we've done that not too long ago and we're quite successful, and so there's the balance. So yeah, we gladly be in touch for the next meeting, and print some flyers and hand them out. So hopefully the group will grow.
Just have a question for those of you who are still on. The community board newsletter, do you read it and do you find it useful? Miss Langley?
Yes, I find it useful. I take some back to my center. I take some back to my church, and I pass them out to across my members, and I give some out to the center when I go to the center, and they let me know a lot of good information is there. They'll say, Miss Francis, there's a lot of good information here. Yeah, so I think it's real good. I keep mine myself. In fact, I have some of the old ones that I really need to throw out, but I do keep them.
Thank you, because it distresses me, or it used to, prior to COVID, to see how many gold envelopes would be left behind at the end of a meeting. And for those of you who don't know, every board member that was appointed would have an envelope with their name on it and the necessary information that they needed to vote intelligently that particular evening would be in the envelope. And it was such a waste of time for the office to put these things together, to have people not even open them. And I could look out as the chair and tell by the looks on people's faces they hadn't read what was in the envelope. And some of the questions that came through let me know that they had not read anything. That's why I asked that question, because it's all about communication. We're trying to make sure that whatever information we have is shared, because the information is no good if you keep it to yourself.
Olivia, can I just say something else, please?
Ma'am.
Yes, they didn't do them this last month, did it? They didn't do envelopes last month, did they?
I think, well, I can't say, you know what?
You're muted, Miss Glenville.
I think they did, but I'm not sure. And hopefully, since we're going to be going into the in-person meetings like we once did, hopefully everybody on the board list, the appointed board list, would get an envelope.
Okay, but I was there and they didn't make any for last month. So hopefully this month they will.
Okay, well, I'll try to remember and mention that to them for Thursday.
Okay.
Because I think it's a nice touch, and it's a personal touch to make sure that everybody, every one of the 50 members has the same information. Now, you can go back to the table and get duplicates if you want to, but it's a starting point for everybody to have the same information.
I totally agree with you.
So that, I will say this again, maybe you haven't heard me say it before. If you have a block association or a tenant association or a neighborhood group, please make sure that you register your group with the board office, so that if anything is coming down, as far as water being turned off, your street being worked on, a movie production or something, they can reach out to you as the contact person for your group. They cannot contact you if they do not know that you exist. And you already know that as far as developers are concerned, it's much better if your block is organized, because they feed very well on lack of organization. Jack, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I have something on that point. Being that we're starting to get very lowball offered for a buyout, we're rent stabilized tenants. And I've talked to Sarah about this, but do we organize within our building to try to stay strong and let each other know what's going on and what we're being offered, but then you're saying you register that with someone?
The idea is that if you didn't have a tenant association before and you do have one now, whoever your principal people are, there's usually a board of some sort. You would want the community board office to know the name of your organization and who your principal people are, who your major points of contact would be in case of a flood or major construction or anything like that, so that you could be notified. Somebody in your group, if one or two people are notified, they can notify the other people. That's the point in that, is making sure that you have a conduit for information for whatever might be coming.
Right. So we don't need to do anything as far as paperwork behind this. We just kind of officially talk together. Maybe email or a Slack group or something like that.
Whoever your principals are, if you have, say, 3 or 4 people and you call yourself whatever it is you call yourself, it doesn't have to be a board vice president, vice president 2, vice president 3, anything like that, whatever your particular group is. If you, even if you don't have regular elections, whoever your major people are at this point in time, they will be considered your major points of contact. The board would like to know that you have such a group and who the members of the group are. And if you don't want to provide phone numbers, at least provide an email so that the board can contact you if they need to. That's
Right.
the point.
There's nothing formal that we need to do to start a tenant association.
Can I just jump in? So
I know that we went
what,
over it, Sarah, sorry.
that's okay. No, Ms. Granville is like what she suggests this, like what she's saying is a suggestion so that your TA can be connected to the community board and, you know, receive notifications of things, but it's definitely not like a requirement at all. Like New York State protects the rights of tenants to organize, but it doesn't have any sort of prescriptive language about, you know, what tenant associations must or must not do. It doesn't have to, there's no requirement to be registered anywhere. This is just, you know, and please forgive me, Ms. Granville, if I misrepresented that, but it's like a suggestion for how your tenant association can be plugged in a way.
Thank you, Sarah, because that's my major point, that you are actually plugged in. Because if no one knows that you even have a group, then it would be kind of difficult for you to consider yourself to be plugged in, so to speak. If you go on the board's website, I believe there's a section called resources. And I'm not sure if we list all of our block associations, but we do list certain types of institutions like community facilities. We do have some houses of worship that we might have listed and things like that. Wherever there are people that gather together for a stated purpose, we're not saying that it has to be something that is not something that's turned over to an attorney general or anything like that. It's simply for community purposes so that the board knows that you have a group and this particular group would like to be notified when certain things are going to occur or when certain things are happening that may affect them.
Thank you so much for that. And I wonder, just one last question on that subject. So I think our next door neighbors are also kind of in the same situation as us, except they have a development company behind their, like a facilities company behind their landlord and things like that. And we just deal directly with the owner of the property. Um, would it would it behoove us to include our next door neighbors in the association? Or does that make a conflict more than cohesion? Thank you.
Sarah, what do you think?
So the way that the Crown Heights Tenant Union usually views this type of thing is that a tenant association um, is built in order to you know, give people more power when making demands of their specific landlord. It's so that, you know, you're not trying to negotiate anything by yourself with somebody who just has more power than you do. And the you know, the power of a TA is that you're like addressing like a single, like, because all the tenants have in one building share the same landlord, or if the you know, if there are multiple buildings, it's usually multiple buildings that have the same landlord, because then you further increase the amount of leverage that you have to negotiate with this person. Um, you know, while like I think if you wanted to sort of join forces with your neighbors, it might be something more like a block association, for the kinds of issues that you guys would be dealing with collectively. But usually, if you're going to do a TA, the most strategic thing is, if you're going to expand beyond the confines of your building, it would be to seek out other buildings that are owned by the same entities. Um, but you know, inviting everybody in your building to a tenant union meeting, and then also inviting the neighbors, you know, at their in that building to a tenant union meeting, you know, is a good way of having people come together to share experiences about what's going on, strategies about how to deal with it. Um, yeah, and then, you know, maybe in that process you discover that there is something that everybody wants to team up in order to address, um, usually. But I guess the difficulty is, yeah, having the specific target to make yourself the most effective possible.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's very, very helpful. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. And all tenants are welcome at tenant union meetings, and even, you know, homeowners who want to be allies can come. Just nobody who's a landlord, unfortunately. But well, yeah.
If you're a small landlord, a small landlord wouldn't be welcome.
No, it's tricky because we're trying to, you know, keep focused on, what specifically tenants are going through, and some of our fellow members are experiencing, uh, abuse even at the hands of small landlords, unfortunately, and we want them to feel safe talking about what's going on.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I think that we've had a very lively discussion. And I say lively because I hope that people had a chance to express points of view that they maybe hadn't had a chance to talk about before. And I hope that you feel that you were able to freely express what was on your mind. And before I think about closing, I just want to know, is there anyone who has something else they want to say that they have not said so far?
Hi, good evening. It's Mimi again. I was actually just wondering, do we have a Google group for housing? Because I
I
was
believe
thinking
that we
maybe,
do.
I thought so, right? I'm just not a part of it. That's what it is. I think we do. I just don't know anything about it. So, yes, Ms. Granville, would you mind adding me to the Google group? Because I was thinking we could just share like our articles and stuff. Like, Sarah had forwarded an article, excuse me, Dr. Lazar had forwarded an article about some harassment that was going on and stuff. So it would be, I just thought it would be kind of nice if we had sort of a central area to be updated on any events that, you know, might pertain to us or anything like that. So we didn't have to just like wait till I see you guys again in another 4 weeks.
Anyone else who would like their name to be added to the Google group as well?
Me, Lisa Atkinson.
Me, Jack, and Nix.
Excuse me, Nicole, can you spell your last name for me, please?
I'm so sorry. I have to really go letter by letter. It's German. So it's L as in Lisa, A as in Adam, E as in Eric, M as in Mary, M as in Mary, L as in Lisa, E as in Eric. And it translates into baby lamb.
Thank you. And the rest of you, you're not saying anything, so should I presume that you're already in the Google group?
I'm in some. I was getting mail from somebody. So yeah, it's a Google group I'm in.
Ms. Glenn, when you say the Google group, what are you referring to?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Slack and give a corner. They might get mail from. It's not the same.
You're muted, Miss Glenville.
I think that many of us are in the land use Google group,
Yes.
and
I think
I
you're
know
right.
that and the land use Google group is a little bit different from the housing Google group
Yes.
because
Oh, okay. So
the
then it got to be added there then.
yeah, and with the land use one, people are able to um like anybody who's in the group is able to send a message to the whole group.
Right.
You know, if you have something to share, and
It's the
like
same
whether
thing.
it's an opinion or an article. But the housing Google group, I believe, like we all can only receive emails from the person who is the administrator of the Google group. So it's almost like just a
Oh,
distribution list rather than a discussion forum.
okay. Ms. Granville, can we change that by any chance?
I don't see why we can't. Now, Sarah, you just said that we can receive, but we can't send. Is that what you said?
So if I understand, I had actually asked Ms. George and Ms. Neal about this a while back, and they said that some people had gotten a little bit frustrated with like the land use Google group was the first one that got set up. And some people had gotten a little frustrated with just how many back and forth emails they were receiving. Um, you know, of course, people can change their settings in the Google group, but not everybody knows how to do that. Um, and so when the housing committee Google group was started, they set it up so that only the administrator, like if you email the housing Google group, I think the administrator of it sees the message, um, and then they can decide whether to forward it to everyone else. But it's not just like an automatic, uh, you know, I can't decide to send a message to the whole group just on my own.
And I guess, wouldn't it be Ms. Granville who would be the administrator? So she would be the one who has that power to change it either way?
What her
Because
role
it's just
is,
about
because
settings, right?
in the past, I didn't have anything to do with the administration of the Google group.
Oh,
So maybe
When they send it, they say don't reply.
I think maybe Miss George and Miss Granville, or sorry, Miss George and Miss Neal are the
are the
administrators.
ones.
And but I think maybe if Miss Granville requested for it to change, that might be sufficient to change it.
Do is I will find out exactly how it has been working and what can be done to change it.
That's awesome, Ms. Granville. Thanks so much. Because, yeah, I think it would be a great way for us to exchange information. And just a reminder for everybody that, as Dr. Lazar was saying, that you can actually set your settings to only receive one email digest. So it would have all the emails that were sent that day only in one email so that you can peruse it at your leisure. You don't have to get each email as it's sent. Although I honestly don't, you know, I hope I don't regret my words, but I don't think that we'll have an issue with the group being bombarded with too many emails, hopefully.
Yeah, there's only a couple of us here. I mean, it's not as big as like land use would be. So I don't feel like we would get too much stuff in.
Yeah, and I think we're each pretty focused on, like, we know what the group is for and we know how to stay on topic, etc.
Okay, so you all have given me my homework. So is there anything else that we need to cover this evening?
I think it's dinner time.
Sounds good to me.
Quiche. We're having quiche.
Send me the same message.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks so much, Ms. Granville. Thank you,
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Granville.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
See you on Thursday.
All right. See you. Yeah, tomorrow, everyone. We'll see each other tomorrow at 10:55 St. John's near Kingston.